Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast, and we had once again an interesting week with a lot of economic and political news on the world stage, and we can see we have some conflicting price action and some pairs which are overly extended. We start now on the DXY on the weekly time frame, and we can see that we really had a bullish reversal week last week, and we ended almost on a full body back within the overall bigger structure. Going down to the 4-hour time frame, we were looking last week for a continuation short in this area into this value area here to the left, which was then the start of the last leg to the upside. We then started last week here forming a potential continuation structure here, which ultimately failed. It failed to sell off in this area. Instead, it broke to the upside, and then price started to stall a bit on the high here, which was the retest here we discussed last week. And there's still an argument for an expanding structure here for price to sell off from this area and then still reach these lows. But overall, my bias right now is more neutral towards the dollar, so I really want to see very clear price action confirmation before I really enter a trade, and therefore I want to see on all dollar related pairs some form of clear confirmation. So right now there is an argument that we create a base here, so it is possible that we get a base and something like that. If we get a bull flag continuation in this area, then we know the dollar has accumulated enough volume to move into the next higher levels here to the left. On the other hand, if we see an impulsive retrace early next week and then followed by continuation in this area here by a bear flag continuation, we know the overall expanding here, overall short would still be in place into these levels. So I want to see some clear confirmation in this area before I consider a trade in any direction. Moving on to Euro US dollar, we can see here on the weekly, we were discussing that for a while as well. As always, it's always on watch. Even if it's not the priority pair. But on the weekly, we can see we had this impulsive move, and we are now still within this correction here for a potential next leg to the downside, which then would mean that there is enough or more steam for the dollar to the upside. And we can see here we have a bearish confirmation week here last week. Of course, it's more or less the inverse on the DXY, and going down to the 4-hour, maybe straight to the 4-hour, we were discussing last week, it was not a priority pair, but we were discussing for price to close the gap. We still have a gap here to the low, so it could go either way. We did not fill the gap, we sold off early, and we are now starting to stall on this low. For me right now, I don't want to continue on something small here. These are quite big moves, so I want to see clear price action confirmation. And after such aggressive moves, I would not be surprised if price would tickle back up into this area before we see some reaction and then get an expanding structure for a short continuation. So if I get a clear structure like that, I'm happy to enter a short in this area. On the other hand, if we break aggressively to the upside, that would mean the DXY would sell off quite aggressively and we get some form of bullish continuation above this area here, then of course I take the sign of the market and would pivot my overall bias. I'm not really eager to take just a small continuation here. This could be possible, but considering where we are in the run, I want to see a little bit more, a bigger structure, a little bit more of a retrace. This would make sense, but then I see on the higher time frame, there is just proportionally it would be a bit too small after such a strong sell-off. I would prefer seeing a bigger structure in this area here, which would give enough volume then for to push the price further down. Australian dollar, US dollar is even more extreme than the euro US dollar. On the weekly, we have a similar picture. Of course, we had this impulsive move. We are still now in a correction for a potential next leg to the downside. And we can see we had a very, very bearish week last week on the 4-hour time frame. We can see we are trading below this whole structure here to the left. So we just ended completely outside and had quite an impulsive move to the downside. So similar to the pair we discussed this before, I'd like to see a little bit a bigger structure here, potentially retesting the lows here on the third touch, something like that. And if I get a bigger bear flag continuation in this area, I'm happy to enter a short in this area. On the other hand, I need to see price break above this area here before I would consider a long again. So if I miss the first continuation and then just take in the second, then that's totally fine. But I want to see a complete change in sentiment before I entertain a long. US dollar Swiss francs on the weekly time frame. We also had that on and off in the watch list. We have this small gap here to the left, to the top. We have a gap to the low. We had an impulsive move. We are clearly in a corrective phase and we are set up for the next leg to the upside. On the 4-hour time frame, there is an argument we are still in a bigger valid structure. After adjusting the structure a bit, we have here a 1, 2, 3 into this liquidity area here, which was the end of this small expanding continuation structure here. We then broke impulsively to the upside and we are now looking for a bullish continuation in this area here. Of course, we have here this V-shaped recovery and we have here an area of interest to consider. But if we get a flat continuation pattern in this area and we can enter in levels like here, that would be enough room to manage the trade to this high for a potential turnaround here. Yeah, overall in this pair my bias is more towards a long right now. Euro New Zealand dollar, again on the weekly we can see we are also finally, it seems, ending this consolidation phase. We had an impulse. We had this clear consolidation in this area and we are now pushing to the upside. We still have this gap to close here. Going down to the daily, we can see we lose some momentum. You could argue that we definitely tapped into this high here and we had quite a nice washout. So it's almost 50% of the wick from the whole, the wick is almost 50% of the whole candle. So that is kind of an indication for a potential momentum change in sentiment on the 4-hour time frame. I'm also kind of neutral. We can see here we have this expanding structure into the high, and we are just slightly ended the week below the previous high here to the left. So we are positioned fairly well for good sells. On the other hand, after such an impulsive, let me clean that shortly, such an impulsive run to the upside, I would not be surprised to have a bigger pullback. So this obvious high here to the left, so if we get some form of a bigger continuation structure above this high here, then I would still more lean towards a long continuation and then say that this whole volume accumulation is enough to drive price further up. On the other hand, if we see a full follow through on the 4-hour early next week, breaking below this area, and then we see some form of a bearish continuation in this area, maybe into late Tuesday, then I'm absolutely happy to change my bias and trade a short from here. Even if it just goes into the 50% range, we would still have enough room to manage a trade if we have a clear confirmation in this area here. Australian dollar, New Zealand. On the weekly time frame here, we had now, after these two high test weeks, we had kind of a neutral week. Last week we did not close the gap here, but we were looking for some bearish continuation. I did not have this pair on priority watch, but I had an alarm for a 4-hour entry on this level here, which got triggered. So I moved the pair into my priority watch list last week, and I actually took this trade on Friday, but closed the trade half an hour before swaps manually for just a break even, because as you can see, the stop loss is a 13 pip stop loss on a pair like Australian dollar New Zealand, with spreads going up to like 30 plus pips. Yeah, I did not want to take the risk, and I did not really know where to move the stop loss, so I decided to close and might re-enter then on Monday morning on this candle if we don't start with the gap. But overall, you can see the structure is still intact. So it's basically confirmed, like the sell was confirmed after this candle here, and also the last candle on Friday is, even though it's a bullish candle, there's still some bearish pressure with the high wick on top. So the overall trade idea is still in place here. We have an expanding structure with the 1, 2, 3 leading into this small liquidity point here to the left. You can see the clear structure here on the 1 hour time frame. So it's definitely something I would entertain again on Monday morning. Australian dollar yen on the weekly time frame, we are still more in a bearish run here to the downside, and we actually closed below this area of interest to the left. We still have enough room to go to fill this wick, at least filling the wick. Going down to the 4 hour time frame, we can see again it's quite some room or some run already, so I'd like to see on the 1 hour time frame we can see it clearer. Keep in mind, this is the low, the area of interest from the left, and we have here a small liquidity point. Then we had, we can argue here, this could be a 1, 2, 3. So I'd like to see price going down first, coming back up for a second base here, and then a third touch. And if I get a clear structure, like something like that into either late Monday, early Tuesday on the at least 1 hour time frame, then I'm happy to continue the short in this area. New Zealand dollar, Japanese yen is exactly the same. We have here on the weekly time frame, we see we have even more bearish pressure than on the Australian dollar yen. Is an indication for the New Zealand dollar yen might be a bit weaker overall, and we have a clear gap to fill here to this weak fill to the left. And going down straight to the 1 hour time frame, we can see that we have a very similar structure. We don't have to worry anything from the left. There's nothing coming from here. It's just to fill the wick. And also here, I would like to see for price to break down first and then come back up into this area here to entertain a potential short entry in this area. Canadian dollar yen was a very nice pair last week. Again, it's providing the goods. We have here on the weekly time frame similar. We had an area of interest to the left. We are trading below. We still have a gap to fill to at least the first low here, potentially the weak fill here is slightly further down. Going straight to the 1 hour time frame, we see Canadian dollar yen the last 2 weeks has very nice, is respecting structure very nice. Even here on the 15 minutes, there was a nice trade here initially. These are both missed trades for me. We had a 1, 2, 3 into this clear liquidity area here for a short sell-off. Price came back up one more time on the 1 hour time frame, formed a bigger structure. Then we get a 1, 2, 3 here. We had a nice 1 hour reversal, another sell-off for around 4 to 5%, and then come back up. And price came back up again for a V-shaped recovery, and I'm now looking for a continuation short again. This does not look anything for a long right now. We are not coming from a value area right now, so I'm definitely looking for a short continuation. Going down to the 15 minutes, we can see we have a small liquidity area here. We had a double top. If I now get a 3-touch structure into this level, That would be perfect. On the other hand, that's definitely a lower time frame entry. On the other hand, if price breaks below this overall slightly more complex structure here, form of a 1 hour or even 4 hour follow through, and then giving me a bear flag continuation in this area, then I'm also happy to entertain a trade in this area, as long as I can manage it just to the low to get at least a break even in before price reaching the low. Then I'm happy to take a short in that area as well. Pound Australian dollar. On the weekly time frame, we can see we have some bullish momentum. We have still enough room to go to the next high here. Price is still kind of in a corrective move on the weekly time frame, so this is definitely not considered impulsive price action yet. On the daily, we can see there is some impulsive price action. Of course, we can argue here there was this 1, 2, 3 wedge into the high here. We just barely tapped it. And we can see also we are losing some momentum. Considering the strength of the pound right now, we are positioned very well for sells, right? But the overall picture would also still favor a long. So from the price action right now and what we tapped into, I would like to see a clear follow through here on the 4 hour at least, and then a bear flag continuation, a structured 1 hour structure, continuation structure to enter a short. I would not be surprised if price is going back, retesting these levels here for a potential long continuation. So if we just get a structured approach, that will take a while for price to then accumulate more volume and giving us a bigger retrace structure basically before we get the continuation for the higher time frame long. Pound Canadian is very, very similar. We can see on the weekly time frame we are creeping up. We had here quite corrective price action, and now it's more erratic with bigger moves during the week. However, we are still just approaching the next value area here, which is this high here to the left, and we are in a bullish momentum run with 3 bullish weeks in a row. Going down to the 4 hour time frame, we also just slightly tapped it, and we can also see here we have a more significant area of interest here, a liquidity point to the left. We are basically trading through price here and going down to the 1 hour time frame, and we can see here we are creating a bit more of a structure. So I'd like to see something like that next week, which then would give me a 1, 2, 3 into this liquidity area, and I would happily entertain a long in this area. So yeah, that's it. That's my watch list for next week. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye bye.